When you think about the ways that you are disrupting this industry, what's the biggest way that you feel that you're making that disruption?
First off, I don't know any former professional women's basketball player that has started their own agency and is scaling the way that I am. We do things with a different type of flair and a different type of swag. We're kind of just going for things and seeing what happens. This time last year, actually, I pitched to the WNBA, hey, let my agency do a bunch of your events for All-Star Weekend. When other agencies found out that I did that, which they didn't find out until the events were about to happen, they were like, damn, we wanted to do that. It's like, okay, well then you should have pitched it.
Right.
So we're just doing things unapologetically. And I think there's a lot of OGs in the space who have led the way thus far. And I'm kind of coming in and switching things up a little bit.
What's happening, beautiful people? Welcome back to the Thrive After Sports podcast. Just a quick intro today. I promise we'll get right into this episode with Taylor Burner. I know her as Taylor J. She went to Stony Brook. We came in as freshmen together. She played basketball. I played football. And we recently got reconnected, and she's doing some big things. This is a must listen, especially for those of you guys who are aspiring sports agents, or if you have ambitions to have your own agency one day, or if you want to do anything in like the sports or entertainment, management type space. This is the episode for you. Definitely make sure you're ready to take notes. She dropped a lot of gems. As always, guys, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're listening on YouTube, subscribe to the podcast if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, and please do me a favor. I don't ask for much, but I'm not too proud to beg. Please hit that 5-star button if you're listening on Apple or Spotify. It really makes a big difference. I want to get this message out to more people. You guys know I do this show for you guys. I don't make money off the podcast. I have other ways of earning. This podcast is really just to get the message out and hear from great people doing great things, people who are former athletes and are up to big things, people who are really thriving in life after sports. And Taylor J is a prime example of what it looks like to thrive after sports. Let's get into this episode. You could be doing something for a long time, but it takes you being put in some sort of spotlight in order for people to recognize it. And Taylor, we were just having this conversation the other day. So I'm scrolling through my feed, or I think I was on LinkedIn one day, and I see a Forbes article. And I'm like, man, this woman looks familiar, And I'm like, man, that's Taylor B from Stony Brook. She played women's basketball at Stony Brook while I was there. And I'm like, man, she has her own agency. I'm reading through the article. I'm like, I got to reach out. I'm like, Taylor, we haven't talked in years, but I know your story will help a lot of people. So, folks, I'm here with Taylor Burner, the founder of Agency 32. Why don't you tell people a little bit about the backstory and what you're up to these days with your agency, making major moves?
Yeah. So thanks for having me on. I'm super excited to be here, especially with a Stony Brook alum. Go Seawolves. And it's going to be exciting. I'm passionate about telling this story mostly because there's a lot of athletes out there right now that maybe just finished or are trying to figure out what they're going to do next. And a lot of it, when I was in college, I didn't know that I could do what I'm doing now 10 years later, which is crazy to say. So yeah, thanks for the opportunity. But to answer your question, so yeah, I started Agency 32 about a year and a half ago. We're a full service sports marketing and entertainment agency. So two sides of the business. One is that we manage a roster of talent. I'm also a WNBA agent. So part of that is on-court contracts for WNBA players. And then talent management, from brand deals to starting podcasts and starting clothing lines, anything that someone who has their own brand wants to build, we can help them do that for our roster. And then on the other side, we work directly with brands. So we work with Nike, we work with Gymshark, Graduate Hotels, Draftkings, et cetera, and doing their brand marketing, events and digital production.
Oh yeah, just a light roster of names people might have heard of before, just something very light.
Few brands.
There's a few. And so for those of you listening, this is why I wanted to have Taylor on, aside from the story, which we'll get into in just a second, Taylor. But a lot of folks, especially in my line of work, you might imagine, they tell me I want to be an agent, let alone start your own agency. So get your pens and pads ready, because this is going to be a master class. So for those of you asking, here's Taylor to give you the blueprint, right? All you got to do is follow the breadcrumbs and put the work in.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this. When you were at Stony Brook, I mean, did you know that you were going to play professionally? Did you always have a hunch, or was that something that just kind of came about?
Absolutely not. I hung up my shoes like 3 times in my career, in my post career. No, I thought I was done after the season, and that was what, March of 2013. Crazy. But no, and then I had tried out for this team called the Maccabea Games. Most people have probably not heard of this, but it's actually the third largest sporting event in the world behind the World Cup and the Olympics. It's basically the Jewish Olympics. So you have to have some type of Jewish blood, whether it's your father or your mother, and you can try out for the team wherever your country is. So obviously I tried out for Team USA. I actually made the team in 2009 and didn't go because the games are every 4 years. That was my freshman season at Stony Brook. And I was like, I don't want to miss all the freshman workouts and all of that stuff. So I didn't go in 2009, tried out again in 2013 and actually didn't make it. And then they called me, I think it was February of 2013. And they were like, hey, someone dropped out and you were the first to reserve. So I ended up playing in the Maccabea games in the summer of 2013. After I thought my basketball career was going to be done in March, but couldn't pass up an opportunity like that. So while I was there, a lot of agents and people were seeing me on the roster and seeing that I was done playing in college, and enlightened me to the fact that I could get my passport and play overseas. So that is how I ended up playing overseas. And then I actually didn't think I was going to play after the first season. And then my agent called me back and was like, hey, they want you again. And I was like, all right, I'm selling gym memberships at LA Fitness. So this sounds better. So, so I left again and went overseas again for another season.
That's funny. So it was the best option at the time, but were you enjoying it, or were you kind of falling out of love with the game of basketball at that time?
I was enjoying being in Israel. It's a beautiful country. Food's good. People are cool. Nightlife is awesome. And at that age, that was really what I was interested in. But I was falling out of love with the game for sure. I didn't like going to practice. I was just like, I was not having a good time playing anymore. So that's why it only lasted for 2 years. After that, I was like, okay, I'm really done now.
So what was that transition process like? I mean, was your agent trying to get you to go back for a third year, or were you just like, man, it's a wrap?
I actually left in the middle of the season. And my agent was like, yeah, no, I was done. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I had some teammates that I really didn't like. It was just a whole thing. But I was overseas and I just started Googling jobs in sports. And started applying to everything. I wasn't even keeping like a spreadsheet or anything of all the jobs I applied to. I was just applying, and came back, moved to Brooklyn without having a job, just had my savings from overseas. And I was like, I'll just figure it out when I get there. So luckily I ended up getting called by one of those jobs, and I ended up working there for about 2 years, a year and a half or 2 years. That was kind of my first like big girl job.
And what was that job?
I was the program manager for a youth sports fitness education company. So basically we would go to underserved communities around New York City and all 5 boroughs and bring the school or the organization fitness program. So at the time, New York public schools were removing recess and gym, like PE, from their curriculum. So all these kids were going crazy because they were sitting in their seats all day. And so a lot of the schools wanted to bring back some type of fitness or movement. So we would create those programs. So I was building the programs, I was training the employees or the instructors, I was hiring them, I was also firing them, which was very interesting and had never done that before. So yeah, it was super small company, like one step up from being a 501c3 or like a nonprofit. So it was like, I learned a ton because there wasn't a lot of people to do all the jobs. I was kind of doing everything. So interesting experience. Glad I had it, but that was actually also the first job I was laid off from. So
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you come back home after falling out of love with the game, and you land this job. Sounds like a pretty solid gig, especially for a first job out of college. Especially not, I'm assuming you didn't have like a super clear idea of what you wanted to do. You were just like, sports jobs. Let me get something sports related.
Yep.
Right. Just like most of us, a lot of people are not in their head right now. So
exactly.
And after you got laid off, I'm like, what did you do next? What happened? were you scared?
I panicked. First, I watched Grey's Anatomy for like 2 days crying in my bed. That was the first thing I did. And then that's a true story for real. And then my sisters, my family had some connections in the city based on what they do. And my sister knew someone at Nike and sent my resume and said, my sister needs an internship. Like, please give her anything. Like, doesn't matter what it is. And this guy, his name is Rocky. I think he works at Beats by Dre now. He said, Nike doesn't have anything right now, but I'll send it to our agency. And I had no idea what an agency was. I didn't even really know what marketing was at the time. I'd never heard that word before. And the agency basically, based off a favor, they hired me. And I think I started their internship program like 2 weeks later. They had a summer internship program. So yeah, it was about a 4-month program. This agency was called Game 7 Marketing. They're still around now. Huge, big agency that boutique, but big in the clients that they work with. They were founded on Nike basketball. So I ended up doing a ton of work with Nike and Nike basketball. Actually, that summer was my first Jordan project that I ever worked on. I kind of weaseled my way into it. I had a bachelorette party in Vegas, and the day after the bachelorette party, I knew they were starting the production on a really big Jordan project. And I was like, I'll pay for my hotel. Just let me help on this project. And so they did. And that was kind of like my first real experience working in the Nike and Jordan brand world, which was really, really cool. Really good experience.
Wow. I know you said you weaseled your way into it, but it sounds more like a finesse to me. That's a finesse move right there. I respect that.
Big finesse.
To put your own money up just to be in the room, to put yourself in a position like that, I think that's huge. I want to go back for a second to have you give some advice. Honestly, I feel like even just having the connection or making a connection is advice in and of itself. But for those who maybe don't have a connection, and are trying to get some sort of internship or just trying to get their foot in the door like you did, is there any advice you can give to those people out there who may be struggling or just like, man, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to put myself in position. What do you want to say to those people right now?
Be prepared for rejection and be okay with it. It takes a lot. Sometimes cold calling, cold emails. I still do it today. Just being okay with that process and being knocked down, but able to get up every single time. So that's what it was for me. Like, it's, what do they say? Closed mouths don't get fed. Like, if you don't ask, you'll never know, or you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Like, you will never know if you don't try. So give everything a try and don't be afraid for the no. Just find your next yes.
I love that. And a lot of people, when I ask them to give advice, and this, people will just say, yeah, you just got to keep going and just believe, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You got to motivate people. But I love how you started out with not being afraid of rejection, because that's reality. Most of us, you're trying to get your feet wet coming out of college. No one's going to get back to you. No one's going to hit you back. It's going to be crickets. And I love that you even say you still do it to this day. So do I.
Yeah.
I'm cold outreaching to people all day long. Why not? What do I have to lose? And I think you said that, like, you have nothing to lose by reaching out.
Yeah. So. Or you're at an event. Like, I just pulled up to the Super Bowl a couple of weeks ago because one person told me to come, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to go and see what happens. And I ended up getting into all these events. But then there was also some people that were like, yeah, email me, and have never answered my email. So it's a lot of that. It happens all the time, but that's just the nature of the business.
Mm-hmm. So for those of you guys listening, really take Taylor's advice right now, because at the end of the day, if you reach out to, sometimes it's going to take you to reaching out to hundreds of people for you to hear anything back. And if you reach out to hundreds of people and you hear back from one person, then the hundreds of people you didn't hear back from makes it all worth it because you heard back from that one. So
Exactly.
solid advice right there. So I know there's a lot of steps in between, founding Agency 32 after you started this internship and you finessed your way in the door to that event. Talk about some of those steps leading up to you starting your own agency.
Yeah, so I'll fast forward through the rest of the story, but basically I ended up being the only intern that got hired after that internship, which was really cool. So I stayed at Game 7 for about 2 years, and I was working primarily on Nike basketball a lot in Chicago. And I moved to Chicago for 2 summers. Those 2 summers that I worked there, they moved me to Chicago to run all of Nike basketball, all the summer programming. So I was building a lot of connections in Chicago. The people at Nike in Chicago, I had really good relationships with. One of them is still she's not in Chicago anymore, but she's still my mentor to this day. She's just in Portland on campus. But she was like, hey, do you want to move to Chicago? And I was like, I think this was summer 2018. She's like, you want to move to Chicago? And I was like, sure. Like, you got something? Like, I don't know. Like, sounds good. And she was like, okay, I'll get back to you. And within, I think it was 4 days, I quit my job and was moving to Chicago to join a different agency called Momentum Worldwide that was doing this big Nike basketball project called The Church. And some people might have seen pictures of it, but basically we took an abandoned church on the west side of Chicago and did free programming, made it a 5-star facility, and did free programming for kids for 4 weeks in the summer. So I was brought on to handle all the programming. We were flying in elite trainers from LA, from everywhere, the people that train LeBron, like everyone, bringing them in and busing teams in every day, like packed schedule. So after that, Momentum was like, hey, we want you to stay and build our Nike business. We don't really have any in Chicago or in the US. They were Toronto based. So we want you to build the Nike business. So I did that for the next 2 years and built it to a multi-million-dollar business for Momentum across all Nike territories. I had a team that was working with me, and then COVID hit and I got laid off again. And which was a pretty scary moment because it's the middle of COVID and no one's getting jobs in COVID. They're just losing them. So I was like, I could probably do some of this on my own. So that was the first kind of like thought of like, hey, maybe I should just try something on my own. And I was working with a lot of talent, working with Nike and booking talent from everywhere, all types of talent too. Artists, musicians, DJs, like Instagram people and influencers. And some people were asking me to manage them. And I was like, that sounds interesting. Like, that could be cool. I kind of always wanted to be an agent, but I didn't want to go to law school. So like, this could be a cool, like different way to do it. So I started as a side hustle. It was originally Taylor B Management. That was my first LLC. And in the meantime, this is beginning of 2021, I got another job at a different agency. I was leading global social media for Champion at an agency called BBDO. I did that for about 6 months. Hated it. Then got another job as the director of marketing for a cannabis company, which is pretty cool. Lasted 3 months. And now September of 2021, I was like, I'm done with this. I'm just going to do Agency 32 full time. And that is when Agency 32 was like really born. That's the date we go with, 9/10/21. So since then, we've been building. And actually that day that I decided, I'm done with this job, I'm going full entrepreneur, I landed a contract that brought me through the end of the year. So I was like, okay, this is like the universe telling me this is something that I'm supposed to be doing. And started a Nike. Nike was my first client with Agency 32. Built a campaign for them with Hibbett Sports, a retailer. And that campaign is still running to this day, a year and a half later. It's featuring different women, and we've featured, I think, over 30 to 35 women in the last year and a half, which is really cool. So yeah, that's how we got here.
Wow. Now, I've always known you to be a confident person. I've always known you to be that was one of the things I appreciated about you, because we were all coming in as freshmen at Stony Brook, you know. And so I remember you always telling it like it is, being very straight up, very straightforward. That's just the East Coast. That's just the New York in you, right? But one thing I'm hearing is like, not only did you have the confidence to put yourself in all these positions, even when stuff didn't work out, or you were laid off, whatever the case may be, even when you didn't even know what the hell you were doing, really, you had the confidence to figure it out. But like, were there ever any moments where, like, did you experience any type of imposter syndrome at all? Or like, were you afraid that you didn't have the type of experience, or were you just like, yeah, I got this? Cause that's kind of your demeanor anyway. You know what I'm
Oh
saying?
my
Like,
God. Every day now. That doesn't go away. I still, to this day, have thoughts where I'm like, I could just go get like a VP job somewhere at an agency and like work on a salary and clock in and clock out. Like I could do that easily. And I think about it and then I'm like, why would I do that? I'm disrupting a space. My goal is to disrupt. I want people to feel uncomfortable with the work that I'm doing because it's so good and so clean. My clients are the aspirational people in sports and entertainment. Like I want people to feel that. So that's kind of how I talk myself out of those moments. But yeah, I don't think that'll ever go away, honestly.
what with that being said, because you said something earlier, you were like, I'm done with this. And that was kind of like the last time you worked a corporate job and then you went full speed into the agency.
Mhm.
What is it that you were done with? Like, was it just the 9 to 5 lifestyle or the control? What was it?
Answering to somebody else,
Mhm.
first of all. The not making my own schedule. I like the flexibility of making my own schedule now. Not being able to travel when I want, like having to like ask for PTO. Like I don't want to do that. Um, Working with people that I necessarily don't want to work with or don't have the same work ethic as I do or don't have the same vision as I do. I think that's a big that's it's hard being an athlete in a corporate scene because I have an athlete attitude in everything that I do. So I'm not stopping until the job is done. Like I'm a stay at the office until the lights go out and if we're not done type person, where a lot of the other teammates were like, okay, 5 o'clock, see you guys tomorrow. And I'm like, wait, but we have a meeting at 9 a.m. with the client. Like, that's not going to work. Uh, so yeah, those were probably the things that I was like, okay, I'm good here. The other thing was I was building a business in someone else's business and I was managing the finances and I was seeing what they were making versus what I was making and how much support they were putting in versus how much work I was doing. And I was like, these numbers don't match up for me.
Right. So I definitely want to spend some more time on your agency and talking about that, because there's a lot we can cover there. But some of the things you're bringing up right now, I think are really important, especially for basically the younger versions of us who are just like, I'm
Mhm.
done playing. I don't know what I'm doing. What you said about the work environment of bringing that athletic mindset into the job, that is something that I hear time and time again. And I know that's a common experience, because you go
Mhm.
into this place and if you're the only athlete there or one of the few, like, or former athletes, you just feel like, what is this place? What is wrong with
Mhm.
these people? Or what's wrong with me? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, um, and this is the other thing I want to talk about, because you mentioned that, like, when you took the leap to go into the agency full time, it's scary. And we live in a day and age where everybody wants to be their own boss. Oh, I want to make my own schedule. I want to be
Sure.
free. Can you talk about the realities of what it's like to actually build your own business? It's not just you wake up and float through the day and drink tea or whatever. What's your typical day like these days?
Oh my God. It's more than the like, uh, more than the like being on calls and being the point person and all of that. It's the mental load that I think people aren't prepared for, and most people that's where they break. Um, I don't have the luxury of clocking in and clocking out. I don't get to turn off my work brain. It is my only brain. So it's while some people, clock out of work and go to dinner, I'm at dinner and my mind is still racing with what's my next thing? What do I owe the client? A great idea. So those are the best thoughts, is like, oh shit, this is a good idea. Like, let me go put that into a deck or build a deck around it. So that's the hardest part, is like not being able to ever turn my brain off. I'm actively working to figure out ways to do that, because honestly, it's just too much. And I just physically can't do it anymore.
Right.
So like, I encourage people to go to therapy. That is like, if you don't, and you are struggling in any type of way, even if you're not, actually go to therapy. It's like game changer, just to be able to talk to someone for an hour that all they care about is your well-being. Because it's rare. Also, when you own your own business, you find that people want things from you more often, which is another thing you have to be prepared to deal with. It's like, who actually fucks with me and who fucks with me because of what I can do for them. So that's a big thing too. And I think that's with anyone working in sports and entertainment. Anyone will feel that, whether you own your own business or don't. So yeah, that's the biggest thing for me, is just finding ways to find time for myself that is not work related. Like even this morning, I have a new thing where I'm trying to wake up and stretch every morning. And like, if I'm home, like get a Peloton ride in or something like that. And I was in the middle of a stretch. I was like doing this like hip stretch. I'm like in this like weird position, and something popped into my head, and I picked up my phone to remind myself to do it later. And I was like, no. And I like hit my own phone out of my hand. And I was like, no, like we're not doing that right now. Like, and I turned the music up, and I was like, that's not, like, the brain does not need to be there right now. So yeah, that's the biggest thing, is the mental load, in my opinion.
And on that note, because you and I feel like now we're getting personal, because for me, I think about the day when, my business is on autopilot and I can be the person who actually wakes up, but this is like a necessary stop on the way, where you have to be in the business before you can work on the business full time and be more detached and have other people running it. So, and I wrestle with this sometimes, because I actually, as hectic as it is, like you said, as stressful as it can be, where the brain never turns off, I actually enjoy being in my business right now. And I think part of me is almost not afraid, but almost will be sad the day where I'm not as involved in it because other people are running it. So anyway, my question for you is, when you think about the future of Agency 3-2, like, what do you see? Will you always be involved in the same capacity, or is it growing and expanding? What's the future of it?
Definitely growing and expanding, but I will always be involved. I'm like control way too much to ever not be involved. I'm very soon, probably in the next few weeks, I will be hiring someone full-time to work on all of the brand operations. So like the second side of the business, which is separate from the talent management. The talent management, I will always be a part of. I will never hand my clients off to anybody. They work with me because they want to work with me, not because they want to work with Agency 3-2. Though they do appreciate and love what I'm building. But they like working with me. I would bring on other agents to work under Agency 3-2, but they would bring their own clients. So that's probably how that side will grow. And then on the brand side, like I said, bringing in someone to handle all those operations, I'll still be involved, because I like doing that stuff. That's like the creative stuff. It's fun. It's fun to do events and come up with campaigns and marketing plans and things like that. And I like plugging people that I know that are really doing dope things. So yeah, that's probably the next step, is like expanding each one in their own way, which will require bringing in more people for sure.
By the way, I totally realized I forgot to ask you where the name Agency 3-2 comes from. You were telling me before we started recording, like, where does that come from?
So there's a story. The short way is it's fucked around and got a triple double. But so shout out to Ice Cube for that. And I'm waiting on the cease and desist. When I get it, I'm gonna like NFT it or something. But the story of me basically, and the agency, and how I feel like we are, and I am, a triple threat, and we do a lot of different things. And we do talent management, and I'm an agent, and we do brand marketing, and we have our hands in art and music and sports and kind of all the places that those things intersect. And the talent that we bring on are all very multidimensional. And anyone that cares or knows about basketball knows that the best players get triple doubles. You have to be a dog to get a triple double. So that's kind of how I look at the business, and how I look at the people that we work with is we're all kind of dogs in our own way, and getting our own triple doubles.
That's right. Can you show me the back of your hoodie again for those watching on YouTube? We got to see the hoodie again. That's fire. Man, I might have to grab me one of those. I'm gonna need some merch after this.
I know. I'll send you one. Actually, I just posted it the other day, and apparently everyone wants me to drop it. So I don't know. Maybe keep an eye out. We'll see.
Absolutely. I'm not too proud to take a free hoodie. Please believe it.
Oh, no, I will.
Free,
no, I will get you a hoodie.
All right. I was fully ready to support, but if you go send it for free, I'm not going to turn that down. I'm going to be like, no, Taylor, I'll buy it. Yeah, please send that free hoodie and I'll wear it.
I got you.
Much love. Okay, cool. Now I want to go back to this. You said something earlier that was that stood out to me. You were like, part of the reason that keeps you so immersed and keeping you from, aside from the fact that you're having great success with the agency, but also what keeps you from going back to the corporate lifestyle is you're like, you're making history. You're disrupting the space, right? And so for me, I don't know too much about the space, to be honest. And I know a lot of people listening may not know either, especially those who want to get into this space but don't know much. So when you think about the ways that you are disrupting this industry and these, these intersections of all these different worlds you're bringing together, what's the biggest way that you feel like, that you're making that disruption?
First off, I don't know any former professional women's basketball player that has started their own agency and is scaling the way that I am. And I think my experience from the brand side and how I bring that to my players is different from how a lot of other corporate agencies are doing it. And not that they're doing it wrong or poorly, it's just different. We do things with a different type of flair and a different type of swag. I'm known for layman's terms running it up. So negotiation is one of my favorite things to do. I come from a family of lawyers, so it's probably where that came from. And my parents are both entrepreneurs too, so that's kind of where my entrepreneurial spirit came from. But we do things in a way that's like, it surprises people. And it goes back to what I was saying before, where we're kind of just going for things and seeing what happens. Like last year, this time last year, actually, I pitched to the WNBA, hey, let my agency do a bunch of your events for All-Star Weekend. And when other agencies found out that I did that, which they didn't find out until the party was about to happen or the events were about to happen, they were like, damn, we wanted to do that. It's like, okay, well then you should have pitched it.
Right.
So we're just doing things without unapologetically. And I think women's basketball especially is a very safe space. And there's a lot of OGs in the space who have led the way thus far. And I'm kind of coming in and switching things up a little bit.
That's hard. I love that. I love everything you just shared. So I actually should have asked you this before we started recording, because a lot of up and coming athletes looking for internships, looking for jobs are listening to this podcast. Are you currently looking for interns, currently looking for employees? I know you said you're hiring your first full-time employee soon. What's that like?
So I'm going to have something this summer. I need to sit down and think about what it is. I get DMs, emails all the time from people and young people in college and athletes and not, that want to intern or just learn more. So I'm going to figure something out. So anyone watching, keep an eye out and follow us, and I'll have announcements and stuff. I'm going to do something. I don't know quite not quite sure yet what it is, but there will be something for sure, because I want to make sure I'm giving back to the next person too.
Okay. And I'll have your website, social media handles, and all that in the show notes. Everybody go check that right now. But why don't you tell people the best way to follow you, follow the brand, all that good stuff?
Yeah. So you can follow the agency at agency3_2. And you can follow me at _Taylor J, JAE _. And then agency3-2.com.
So, and folks, I'm trying to help y'all out right now. Okay. So you got something cooking over the summer where you're going to be looking for interns or potentially employees. With all the DMs and people, you get reaching out, what's the best way to stand out where you'll be like, you know what? I want to give this person a shot. I see this young, ambitious up and comer. I want to give them a shot to be a part of my agency and give them this experience. What are you looking for? What are you looking to see when someone hits you up?
Build a beautiful deck with a good idea. That is what I need interns to do, is know how to build a deck. That is where we need the most help. And that's where I learned a lot of the things that I did back when I first started. So send me a beautiful deck and I will look at it and I will probably actually respond.
Nice. There it is. I want to use this time. This just flew by. So first of all, in case I don't get a chance to say it, thank you for taking time to do this. And this is why I reached out to you, not just because the Forbes article, congrats on that again, by the way, but that was what had me really take a look into what you were doing. And then I think about the people who I coach and people who are connected to me, and I knew this was going to be helpful, and you definitely delivered above and beyond. So I appreciate that.
So thank you.
I want to use this time for you to give some advice. I know you were over basketball, but for those who they fit whatever sport they play, they graduated or they're finishing up their professional career and they just really don't know who they are outside of the jersey, or they don't know what they want to do with their lives. What can you share with those people that can just help them in that chapter of their lives right now?
Try different things. You'll never know until you try it. I truly do believe that. I think people try to imagine what their life is going to look like, and it's impossible. You need to try things and see what you like, see what you don't like. And like I said before, be prepared for that moment where you're either rejected or you're like, I really hate this, and be able to move on and find that next thing.
There it is. Well, Taylor, thank you again for coming on. I want to call you Taylor J now for some reason, because I used to call you Taylor B back in the day, but Taylor J has a nice ring to it.
Yeah, you can. I'm good with that.
Thank you. Yeah, okay, Taylor J it is. Taylor J, thank you for coming on. You are a prime example of what it looks like to thrive after sports. I'm excited to keep watching your journey and everything that you're doing. And keep killing it. I know I don't have to tell you that, but it's great to see.
So I appreciate you. Thank you again. This was awesome.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the next episode. Peace.